Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Beyond the Curtain for another In Conversation with. Today, I'm talking with Simon Beck. Simon Beck is a musical director, conductor, he's a coach and mentor, and as well he has a CD out called Courage of a Dreamer, which has recently gone digital, which is something we talk about on our chat. I hope you enjoy this interesting conversation. But I will start with the first question was, what inspired you to get into theatre?
I don't know if I was inspired more than I was taken to the theatre a lot as a child. Excuse me. And the first big show I saw was the original production of 42nd Street at Drury Lane. And it starred, and I think the story is quite well known now, it starred a then very unknown, very young Catherine Zeta-Jones, who had just been promoted from understudy to star, mirroring the story of the musical. And it was the first West End show, certainly I was taken to. And for £7 a ticket, £7 a ticket, folks. Yeah. Get that inflation. For a ticket right up at the back of the balcony, very back row. And I remember the lights going down, spotlight on that famous curtain rise with the tapping feet. And as soon as the music started and those feet tapped, something in me just went, that's going to be me. So call that inspiration, call it fate. I don't know what you call it, but that was it.
And how then did you kind of go down the path you've gone towards kind of musical direction, kind of rather than being like an actor yourself? To kind of, I know you did some performances yourself.
I was talking about this with a friend just the other day. I grew up acting as a child. That was just something I was drawn to. We had lots of opportunities in this area growing up, and it was just something I enjoyed. I found I had an ability for it. I had an ability to sing. I can say now, because it's so many years ago, I had a fantastic soprano voice. I loved singing as a kid. And as I got older into my teens, I looked forward to my voice breaking, and having been a fantastic high soprano, I thought I'll have this fantastic tenor voice and I'll have all those high notes as a man growing up. And of course my voice broke and I ended up with a range of about 5 notes as a real bass. Yeah. And it's taken a lot of years to open up to a higher baritone range. But that was my first love, acting and performing. And music was something that I certainly have a gift for. That's definitely the gift rather than the initial interest. And when I left school, I studied acting and performance through school. I studied it in London before I really was getting serious about being a musician. And I think the quickest, easiest way to answer the question, and sorry, there's no great story to this, it's as simple as it's easier to get work as a musician than it is as an actor and performer. And all my actor-performer colleagues will so resonate with that. Back in the sands of time, I think was it 90, you'll know, probably being a big theatre fan, 1995, I think, was that the original cast of Fame at the Cambridge? You weren't born then, probably.
No, I was born. But
I think that was I think 95 was the original company of Fame. And I went to, that was one of the open calls I went to back in those days as a performer. And again, I think this is something lots of people will resonate with, those of us that have read those listings or been put forward for things when it says, and the singer's calls will be from 10 till 2, and then the dancer calls will be from 3 till 5. And so as the singing actor, I went along to the singer's call, and the first thing that was done was we were put into a dance combination. And I recognized all the star dancers back in that day, and they were all at the front. And all I had in my head was my my drama teacher saying, you know, it's not always about who can do the steps. It's about personality. It's about who's resilient enough to stay with it and do the best they can. So I dutifully stayed for half an hour, for 40 minutes. I got through the first cut. I got through the second cut. I stayed on. And then they're doing all these crazy combinations. And I think Fame came out on the stage at the peak of, at the beginnings of street dance really coming into theatre. And it was so out of my comfort zone and way past my abilities that I just kind of turned to my friend and said, listen, good luck, mate, I'm out of here, and laughed it all off. So a few more audition experiences like that, and I just thought, oh, do you know what? If I'm ever going to perform, it'll be under my own steam, without the pressures of all this. I don't seem to fit the mold as a performer for a West End show. So I know, you know, I do my own act with my band, my glorious musicians, and we've been very fortunate to go all over the place. We've been to America, we've been to Japan when we were in Tokyo. Excuse me, we played a fabulous jazz club called Jazz on Top. I can't find where it exists now. I think it's moved from the venue it was when we were there. But we had, it was just a fantastic room, a little bit like Crazy Coqs, where all the West End artists hang out. Not, I don't mean necessarily theatre artists at Crazy Coqs, but just the whole Soho West End community, the drag stars, the poets, the chefs. Now they're in conversation at Crazy Coqs. It was a great place in Tokyo where film directors were hanging out at the cabaret nights. And so I met a lot of fantastic people in Tokyo. That was a very long answer to your question.
Oh, good. So kind of what was it like then when you kind of discovered, because you discovered quite a young age, right? You're kind of 18, 20, obviously 20 when Sunset Boulevard kind of happened.
Yeah.
What was it kind of like, kind of that age, kind of being in the West End, kind of obviously and conducting? Obviously you're the youngest conductor.
Exciting, terrifying. I mean, I was so absolutely innocent, naive. And I think what comes with that is a certain confidence, because you have no idea the pitfalls, no idea the consequences. And so you blithely just do what you think you know to do, and you follow what people tell you to do. And it's thrilling. I was very fortunate to I think, again, the story is just right place at right time, and quite miraculously, because there was no great master plan to, I must meet this person, I must write to that producer. I was just in the right place at the right time. I met the right combination of people, and I found myself in the pit at the Adelphi in the original production of Sunset, playing keyboards. That was my very first DEP job. And from that, I very quickly was hired as the assistant conductor for the original German production. That was the first time it went to Europe. And a complete whirlwind. I mean, looking back now, I hadn't a clue what was going on. I'd never done anything like it before. Didn't know how any of that process worked. And there I was, right at the top of a major Andrew Lloyd Webber mega musical. Didn't know what I was doing. So a complete baptism of fire. I loved the music. I'd seen the show in London. I'd played a few times in the pit in London. And yeah, I mean, thrilling to be a part of such a thing. And that experience is something I'll carry with me forever, with such gratitude to be able to have joined the business at a time when they still had the big orchestras.
Yeah.
Because I think, you know, I teach and mentor a lot of up-and-coming directors and conductors now, and the opportunities for them to conduct are so few and far between, because everything is either one keyboard player and a load of tracks going on, or one or two of them in the pit. Most things are led from the keyboards these days. There's no real jobs in theatre. I can't think of anything other than Les Mis and Phantom, which are still those big musicals from yesteryear that are actually conducting jobs.
Yeah. Obviously, I don't know if you've seen the thing about Phantom going out about an hour ago that people talking about they're cutting the orchestra down, aren't they?
Yes. I'd love to say I'm surprised. I'm the furthest thing from surprised.
Yeah. Likewise. But then, kind of obviously, as a kind of musical director, what's the kind of process from obviously when you get the job to then obviously opening night? What's your kind of role entail, kind of thing?
What a good question. It very much depends on the collection of people and the project. Often, I think the fundamental part of the job is people management. It's a very collaborative role in the sense we are obviously working under the producer. So what they would like to happen and what they need to happen for their production is what we need to be aware of to serve. We are working under the vision of the director and a choreographer in musical theatre productions. So we're having to manage those three people's visions, which aren't always the same because it's three different people. We're clearly trying to honour our own musical vision of the project to match that up. Then we have to help teach that and share that with the cast, the orchestra, collaboration with an orchestrator if that's required. I had that was the big reason I wanted to work on The Boyfriend at the Chocolate Factory, because it was having a brand new orchestration by David Cullen, who orchestrated Sunset Boulevard and orchestrated, I think, everything Andrew Lloyd Webber's ever written, certainly, and many other things, and has orchestrated albums for many stars. And he's just the most wonderful, wonderful gentleman and huge talent. And I really wanted to work with him. So there's a part of the process where somebody such as David comes in with his artistic vision, and then there's a collaboration to say, well, that's what you would like, this is what we need you to do to provide for the production. And one ends up wearing many hats and looking after many different people's needs. And
so kind of obviously once the show's open, what then for you? Is it just kind of making sure the music's obviously keeping everyone in check, kind of the orchestra? What's kind of happens there?
More of the same. More of the same. It's a never-ending people management role. On one hand, we're, I think, the only member of the creative team that live with the production. You know, a director will leave usually after opening night. Most of them stay that long. Some do leave after rehearsals and just let the assistant team put it in. Same with the choreographer, they don't live with the show. So it's a challenging role to live with a show as the creative member, because once you're in performance, you become part of the show, part of the cast, part of the team. And so there's a very, very difficult relationship to balance then. With the cast particularly, the roles are changed once a cast open a show and they start living and receiving the feedback from an audience. The show rightly becomes theirs. It's not what was more of an instructing role in rehearsal to teach them the notes of the composition, becomes let them take it, let them live in that energy, in that space, let them make the music. You simply take care that they're remaining true to the material, true to the composer's wishes, true to the direction. A guidance role, I suppose, once we're up and running.
Yeah. And obviously you've worked on numerous shows, probably too many to mention, so I'm going to curtail the question of what's kind of been your favourite roles to work on?
My favourite show, unquestionably, to work on was Spamalot. I loved every second. I had a fantastic team, and I had a fantastic conversation with John Dupre, who composed it, and I met him for lunch, and we had a conversation before we went into rehearsal. So there was an awful lot of knowledge that he was able to give to me before we then went to work. And that was that they had written Spamalot, and most of us know it first opened on Broadway and was this huge, big mega production, these amazing stars, and they threw everything at it. There were all the singing chorus girls, the big extended dance breaks. Every moment was a huge, big production number. And I didn't know, who did, until I met with John, that that's not the show they wrote. Anyone who knows Monty Python and is a fan will know that they were, I can't remember, 5 of them. And it was a sketch. They were a sketch show. They would all just change a hat, change a wig, change a coat to be a different character. And they were just sketches. And so that's how they wrote Spamalot. But because it's Broadway, it has to be, quite rightly, the big production. And so they had the dance arranger, the music director, the music conductor, all the supervising producers, the assistant choreographer, the associate choreographer. It became this huge, big machine. And they've said in many interviews how much they loved that production. So there's no negative anywhere. They loved everything about that production. It just isn't what they set out initially to write, but they're very proud of what it became. But when it came to Christopher Luscombe, the director, Jenny Arnold, choreographer, and I, to reimagine a production to go on a tour originally, and then it did go into the West End, and I think it ran quite a few years in the end. Mm-hmm. The brief for us was direct from Eric Idle, was could we reimagine the show back to what they had originally written, much more of an intimate review sketch type vision, and cut down the dance numbers and just trim the fat that had become this huge, huge Broadway musical. Because, bottom line, they're very expensive to run. Yeah. And they loved Spamalot, and they wanted it to be out there for an audience to enjoy, but it was simply too expensive to have in such a huge production. So that was great. It was a really creative experience to go in and, with John's blessing, change the score however it was needed. Yeah. To adapt those musical numbers to take great. I mean, it was a fantastic. I can't remember who did the dance arrangements on Broadway, but whoever did them, they did a fantastic job. It was sad to lose it. Yeah. And we had wonderful Marcus Brigstock as King Arthur and glorious Jodie Prenger as Lady of the Lake. And there was a big difference too, because they were, especially Jodie, a very, very different casting to the original actress who played, played Lady of the Lake on Broadway. And so again, with John's blessing, I think one of the best pieces of advice he gave me was, he said, being a musical arranger is like being a tailor. Cut your clothes to the person. I'm not going to say this very cleverly. He said it so brilliantly. But just the idea that rather than forcing something on a person and forcing a performance or an arrangement on somebody, spend time with the person, get to know them, get to know their personality, their talents, what makes them shine, and then make an arrangement that really shows them off. And then they will always shine on stage, rather than be thinking, I'm wearing someone else's clothes, this doesn't fit right. Yeah. And I mean, I would love to work with Jodie again at some point, because she was such great fun to work with. One of the kindest hearts I've ever spent time in a room with. She was so loving to everybody and so giving. And it's naughty to use somebody else's name in a comparison, but I hope she won't mind when I'm using a great diva to say it was like working with a young Bette Midler. The energy she brings to work on stage and off is just vibrant, alive, loving, generous, and she's so funny.
Yeah.
She's so funny. So almost because of Jodie alone, it was one of the most fun experiences. And I think that went through the entire company. I know everybody in that original company had a ball, and our audiences loved it. We loved them. Yeah, great time.
Glorious. So obviously, one of the main reasons I asked you to come here today was obviously to talk about your album, which I have here, of course. So obviously, it's obviously recently gone digital. Kind of, how did that happen? So obviously, I know the album came out in 2015. So
yes.
How's that process kind of happened to go digital? Because I have no idea how that works.
Oh my goodness, Mark, neither did I.
No.
So that's why it took a while.
Yeah.
It was an album born of my shows I've done that we mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
And audiences had been very kind and said, you know, do you have a recording? And so that was what inspired me to make a record in the first place. But because it was me, suddenly not under the auspices of a big Andrew Lloyd Webber musical production or a Cameron production, there was no producer involved. That was me. So I had to very quickly learn how it all works. And I'm just me. So it was enough for my head to deal with how I got a CD out into the world, and how I could sell that from my website, and all the legalities involved, the licensing, to make sure that the whole point of my album in the first place is it's my celebration and my tribute of my favorite theatre writers. Stephen Flaherty, Lynn Ahrens, love them. Stephen Schwartz, the list goes on. Amanda McBroom. So I absolutely wanted to be sure that they were getting their dues because it's their work. I'm singing and playing and performing. So the licensing was a big thing for me to learn and make sure that just legally I was doing everything right. And so I simply, at the time when I released the CD, couldn't take on any more. My head was too full. And then one gets busy on other projects, and one gets busy with life, and all that happens.
Yeah.
And last October, I think, was the 5th anniversary, and we did a re-release. I'm just pleased that it still seems to be something people are interested in. I think the idea of the title, I mean, it's from the title track, The Courage of a Dreamer. The idea that as artists, we are dreamers. We have our dreams and our hopes that our ambitions we want to try and fulfill. And the courage it takes to go out alone and step outside of the masses and say, do you know what? I don't mind what you think of me. I have to go out and do what I have to go out and try. So I think that's what's resonating with people. It's a very mellow collection of Broadway show tunes. It's a world I don't live in anymore. So it's nice to know it's out there in the world, a recording of a time that was. Mm-hmm. But I think the story of it is it's a life. The collection of songs represents a life from birth to death. In some ways, it represents part of my life. I'm sure people will resonate parts of their lives in it.
Yeah.
And again, getting it to digital was simply I spent this pandemic year learning how the digital side worked. There's lots of terms and conditions to get through, lots of terms and conditions to read, lots of legalese. And I'm not clever at all that. So that took a long time to sift through and make sure I really understood. Because again, I don't have too many people to bounce things off. So I had to be sure I understood. Yeah. And again, the licensing for the digital release. And we got there eventually. And I'm very happy to know that it's all legally licensed, and every composer and lyricist gets taken care of as they should. And yeah, now it's quite bizarre to think that it's out on all digital platforms and people can listen to it all over the place now. I think my biggest following is in Peru. Who knew?
No, yeah, exactly.
Broadway show tunes hit Peru.
Have to go and do like a tour over there or something.
Maybe.
I know you just mentioned that it's some of your favourite tracks, but how did you kind of whittle it down to which ones to put on the album?
Well, as I say, they do represent a life, and I think most certainly most friends I know that have done a show or made a record like this that represents a life, an experience, the songs kind of choose themselves, because they represent where one is at any given time. And at the time I was living in those songs, they absolutely represented where I was at. I mean, I think songs like The Human Heart resonate forever because it just talks of community, connection, and the idea that we are all one. We are the human race. It doesn't matter what we look like, what we do, what we sound like. We are all connected. We are all part of the human heart, as the great lyric says. Some songs are on there immediately because I just love the composers.
Yeah.
I had to do an Amanda McBroom song because she's the best in the business. As far as cabaret and solo artists are concerned, she's just the absolute queen. As I said, Stephen Flaherty, Lynn Ahrens are my favourite composers, so anything they've written was going to find its way on the album somewhere. And another favourite performer of mine, Lilias White, she, I think, introduced the song Come Down From the Tree as a cut song. It was originally written for Once on This Island, and she was certainly the first artist I heard sing it, and I think she did introduce it on a collection of cut songs. And so I wanted to share that. I've always been attracted to, there's so many great stars out there that are presenting the big hit songs. And so as somebody who isn't a star, I wanted to present the unknown songs from the hit shows.
Yeah, it's one of the good things about the album, kind of, like you say, you kind of get the albums come out, they're always the same songs, aren't they? Kind of regurgitated, kind of over and over. So it's kind of nice to have an album that's different to listen to.
Thank you.
Songs you don't get. Kind of moving on though, kind of how have you found this last kind of year? Obviously, I know you should have been doing The Boyfriend in Toronto. So how kind of have you kind of navigated through losing work and?
Oh my goodness! I mean, I'm sure my story is the same or very similar to many people. I have, firstly, yes, we should have been. March we closed The Boyfriend at the Chocolate Factory and went straight into rehearsals with the Toronto company, and I think we had four days, glorious days in the rehearsal room, and a new company led by Sophie Louise Dan, Michael Prade, Kelsey Grammer, Gillian Bevan, Layla as Polly. Forgive me, I can't remember Layla's second name off the top of my head. Oh gosh, but everybody will know who I'm talking about. It's just the most divine cast. Oh my goodness. Such talents, but such beautiful people to spend a day in a rehearsal room. And like everybody else, come that infamous Friday, the producer came in, class act. He came in to see everybody and said, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm in sneakers and a shirt sleeves, but I wanted to see you face to face to say, really sorry, Canada has shut down. And so we can't go. And then I think it was the next day, London was shut down and everything was cancelled. Frankly, at that time, I was tired because we literally just closed London. So the idea of having a few days off,
Yeah.
I was happy. I was happy. Then, of course, the reality hit that, oh, actually, this wasn't going to finish anytime soon. And we weren't going to Canada. And so when that really hit and I realized I wasn't going to have that experience, that was a shame. I have some friends out there I was looking forward to catching up with. And I was looking forward to working in Canada. Never been there before. So that was a real shame to lose that. And to have continued the experience with those glorious leading players, that was a shame to lose that. But that was summer.
Yeah.
So I enjoyed a lovely summer off and just hanging out in the garden in the sunshine, eating far too much ice cream. And summer felt great. Who knew?
Yeah.
And I think the worst time was the October, November, when I do know from speaking with many people, that was the time that hit us all the hardest, because suddenly all the work had been cut. At least in summer, we still had some dates in the October, November, and we thought, well, maybe we'll be back for those. But when we got into October, things had been lost again. There was nothing through the end of the year. The big shows, clearly for everybody, were never coming back at that point. Pantos were in terrible trouble, weren't they? And so there was just such a really dark energy, it felt like, and it certainly dragged me down. Christmas was the only thing that got me through. So I know around here, the village here, everybody went to town putting lights up. Yeah. You couldn't move the sparkly lights and all the colours and everything. That was a good time. There were a good few weeks over the Christmas holidays. But then January, February was really dark. That was really difficult because there was nothing in the diary work-wise at all at that point. Everything had been cancelled, postponed. I've had a concert with lovely Lorna Dallas that we were booked originally, a big celebration of music hall and a beautiful theatre hall in the Royal Pavilion in Eastbourne. And it was originally booked June last year. It got postponed from June to October. It got postponed to June this year. And in January, it got postponed to June next year. So everything had been cancelled and just taken out the way. Yeah. So January and February just looked, frankly, very hopeless because it was fast coming up the year in lockdown and shutdown and everything down. And so it just felt like nothing was really changing. Yeah. And to see everything get cancelled again was tough, really tough. But I must speak of Sophie Louise Dan and her great spirit that she decided, well, she was meant to have been our Madame Dubonnet in Toronto. She was looking forward to being in that role, in that production, on that adventure with us all. And she was missing having the opportunity to perform. Mm-hmm. And so she sat for a minute or two and then said, well, I need to do something, and we all need cheering up. I can't be in a big show, but I can put on a show. So she changed her hat, metaphorically, and went from being one of our beautiful leading ladies to one of our glorious producers. And she's been producing her fab show. We have so much fun. May I Have a Moment, which was inspired by her great turn as Diana Devane in I can't remember the show. Lend Me a Tenor. Goodness me, Lend Me a Tenor. And so she booked us on a little tour of that, which we were able to do some dates. Some dates got cancelled. It's been filmed, so we've been very fortunate. Crazy Coqs have streamed it in their live stream series twice. And all being well, May 29th, Soph and I are back at Crazy Cox doing the latest version of May I Have a Moment. And it's being live streamed too, for those that can't get there in person. It's a really fun show because Soph's very clever to plant seeds in her show that the core show remains the same. Yeah. So fans of the show can come and enjoy the bits they know they're getting. It's a celebration of her career in British theatre. So it's a show that celebrates all the big roles she's known for, from Calendar Girls to Lend Me a Tenor to Maid in Dagenham, Bend It Like Beckham. But within that, the seeds that she plants are the little topical moments. So if you think you've seen the show before, you can keep coming back and seeing the next version, because there will always be something new in the show that will catch you and go, she's changed that bit. That's a new bit there. And it keeps it fresh and fun for us too. So May 29th, hopefully all being well.
Right. And obviously, how was it working on obviously not like a big production, kind of, how was it working kind of within the restrictions?
We've had such a laugh. I don't know how anybody else could do it. Soph and I are great friends, and we have a great, very natural rapport. So we understand each other and we can feel each other very easily. So rehearsals for us. I mean, in many ways, it was the same. It is a huge. I'm going to show you just here. That's the score for Soph's show. It's big.
Yeah.
It's big.
Yeah.
So in many ways, it's very similar to putting a big musical together. There are arrangements to be done. You have to craft the evening, so there's all the highs and lows, and there's a journey to go on to keep an audience involved, rather than just "and my next song is," "and my next song is." And as I said, Soph sings the big hit songs that she's known for from those great big hit musicals. But our task in this show is this is an intimate evening with Sophie Louise Dan, not the characters that she played on stage. We're seeing the actress behind those roles now. So we're looking at those big hit numbers from Soph's perspective, at seeing how to craft those musically a little differently, not necessarily exactly the versions that she performed on stage. So we will spend hours on Zoom calls discussing her acting roadmap through each number, how we link everything, underscoring, is there a funny story? Is there a moving story? Is there a behind-the-scenes story to share that will lead us into the next song? She's very clever at composing that line. And she might cut. We did the Christmas version. May I have a festive moment? We did the Christmas version. So again, it was the core show with Christmas music dropped in. So again, more discussion of what musical arrangements do they need to be? How are they slotting into the show? What are the new links? And so then I go away and write those arrangements. We have another Zoom call. I come back on cam and present those arrangements to Soph. She then goes away and learns them. And then we come back and have our crazy rehearsal schedule, which runs just like a musical rehearsal runs. But we all might know Zoom has a time lag of about 2.5 seconds. So the idea of me sitting here playing the piano and somebody on the other end singing will always be out of time with each other. Yeah. So we immediately realized we could never rehearse traditionally. So Soph's kind of talented and can keep pitch perfectly. So we'd had this ridiculous situation where I would play the intros to put us in the right key, and then I would mime while Soph sang, so I could hear what her emotional journey was, what her phrasing was, where she needed a little breath here, there. And then the next rehearsal, she would do all the links and the dialogue into the numbers. And then she would mime while I played so that she could hear exactly what the arrangement was and what the accompaniment was she would be singing to. And so we only ever were together when we got to the room each time we had a gig and could get into sound check together. And that was really, the first time was September last year. So we'd had from March till September of doing nothing, then working online together. And in September, we finally were in the same room together. I played the intro, and I was so used to being on the Zoom calls where I played and she didn't sing, that I was in the room at Crazy Cox and I played the intro and she started singing and I jumped. Because I had so gotten used to her never ever being there.
Yeah.
And it was so strange for us to come back to each other and go, oh, a live person in the same room. Such strange times.
And how do you think kind of this past year will affect kind of the theatre industry going forwards?
Oh my goodness, I've no idea. I've no idea. I can't answer that question.
It's a tough thing.
It's a great question. We're all asking it, but
Yeah.
I don't know who has the answer to that.
Glorious. Well, that kind of wraps up the first section. Now I'm going to move on to kind of quick fire questions.
Oh, wow.
These are more just kind of random questions about some of your favourite things, basically. And the first one would be, what's the best piece of theatre, in your opinion, that you've seen in your lifetime?
Oh my goodness. How do I tie that down? Okay, today's version, the best piece of theatre. Oh, I'm just, do you know what? Just coming at it from every angle, and because it was so inspirational and educational, I'm going to claim Sunset Boulevard. I love the star performance from Patti LuPone and the leading company. Interestingly, they cast, I remember Kim Ismay, who's a pal, and many people will know her from her amazing turn in Mamma Mia and more recently as Morrible. She's fabulous and such a laugh too, goodness me. I remember she said she was in the original company. I remember her telling me that for that show, they really wanted a powerful energy across the board. And so they cast the ensemble with leading players.
Yeah.
So across the board, that cast was just in your face, phenomenal. The music remains some of my favorite music. It's symphonic, it's epic, and then it's really that LA jazz big band sound. It's fabulous. David Cullen orchestrations. Mm-hmm. The design was spectacular. The choreography was amazing. The scenic effects, they did all that. Did you ever see it?
No, the only version I've seen was the one that Curve did, kind of whenever it was December when they streamed it. Wow. That's the only time I've seen it.
Right. I think they were one of the first productions that did projection on the set, so the car chases and everything was they used some of the original Paramount Pictures film footage. It was an extraordinary production. Yeah. So today I'm going to say my favorite show, Sunset Boulevard.
Gross. And what would be your favorite theatre either to have worked in or have visited?
Can I claim two?
You can.
Right in first place, the London Palladium and the Theatre Royal Drury Lane.
And why? Why
They're
those?
Beautiful, architecturally and designed. They're beautiful buildings, and the energy in both from all the people who have played there, worked there. I'm talking everybody. Everybody. I'm not going to name because then I'm going to forget a department. Yeah. Everybody that works in theatre, that has worked in those buildings, there are legends everywhere in all departments, but you can feel the energy in those buildings. They're incredible. Such an honour to be in those places.
And what would be your favourite food?
Italian.
What?
I'm laughing because you said this was the quick fire round, and I can't I can't answer anything quickly, but that I do. Italian food, done.
Solid. This is a random question. If you could be any animal, what would you be and why?
Oh, Lord. A cat. Independence, adventure, and they love exploring.
Very good. I know you've travelled a bit, so where's the favourite place you visited in the world?
For sheer beauty of colour, nature, and spirituality, I'm going to say Lombok in Indonesia. I've never seen humans be so respectful of nature before as on Lombok. Builders who were working on a building right on the edge of the sea, a very small cliff, and not even a cliff, that's ridiculous, but there was a ledge from the ground to sea level, and they were working very close to the edge. And one particular day, it was getting quite windy, the waves were quite strong, and as the waves were coming up closer and closer, all these grown men working on the construction squealed and ran off, all of them just gone in one. And, you know, this was about 20 years ago, I think. And I remember turning to our hosts and saying, gosh, what's going on? And they said, well, they're the locals and they really respect nature. It's their religion, and they really respect the sea, and they see that the sea is not happy today and it's coming too close, so they respect and get out of the way. And I think that's so beautiful. Yeah. I think that's so beautiful, and clearly we're all talking, and we should be all talking about what man is doing in nature these days. And so yes, the spirit on Lombok will be with me forever, for sure.
Glorious. These are the next few are kind of tougher questions because they're like the theatre question. What would be your favourite film?
Ooh, favourite film. I'm trying to think, what have I seen recently? There's so many, aren't there? There's so many. Oh my goodness. Well, do you know what? Only because I was reading about this literally yesterday, and two friends have been talking to me about it recently too. Back to the Future. Mm-hmm. It's fairly topical again, isn't it? Because they've just done the musical about it, and hopefully that's coming back. Yeah. We've just left 2020, and the chat yesterday was, didn't Doc warn Marty about 2020 in the second one, I think? So I'm going to say that's up there with some of my top favourites. Great trilogy.
And what would be your favourite Disney film?
Oh, how do I pin it down? I love Disney so much. Oh, I love Disney. I love Up. Mm-hmm. I love Up. I love Beauty and the Beast, which is why it's on the album, because I love that film. I love that score. I love Alan Menken and Howard Ashman. Beauty and the Beast was probably the first Disney film I saw as a adult. I nearly said as a grown-up. That ain't adult. And that's what rekindled my love of Disney as an adult. Yeah, Beauty and the Beast and Up.
Very good. This can be musical.
Oh my goodness, I can't stop them. Oh, no, love them.
There's too many good ones, isn't there?
Mm-hmm.
This can be either musical, theatre, or just general. What would be your favourite album?
Do you know what? Not even thinking. It just comes straight into my head. Tina Turner's Foreign Affair.
Solid. And your
I'm
favourite?
a Tina Turner fan.
Yeah.
And her band are just watch and learn. Amazing team. Amazing team.
Yeah, we were all talking about in the kind of WhatsApp group we're in about going to see the musical now, because obviously it was on that BBC show when it not long ago. Now we all kind of want to go and see it.
Yeah.
What would be your favourite book?
I don't read much. I really don't. Favorite book? Okay. A very influential book for me was Eckhart Tolle's A New Earth. And I think those opening pages before you get into the writing, and they say, this book's dedicated to blah, blah, blah. And I think it was there he said, this book will either resonate with you, in which case I hope it helps, or it won't resonate with you, in which case put it back on the shelf. This is not for you, don't worry. And it changed my life.
Oh, yes.
Anybody who's read it will know.
Yeah.
And anybody who is curious, it will already have resonated. They'll go out and have a look. And those that go, what? It doesn't matter.
I'm going to give it a Google in a bit. Something I know. What was the last thing you binged on TV?
A Good Place. On Netflix. Mm-hmm. Kristen Bell, Ted Danson. I loved it. I just finished last week.
Yeah.
And I miss it so much. 4 brilliant characters. I can't remember all their names, but I loved them. They just become like friends, don't they?
Yeah, yeah.
I don't mean Friends, the TV show, but like they just become your friends that you have, especially, during this year when we can't be with our friends. They just become friends you get to know, you spend so much time with, and then the season finishes and you're like, okay.
Yes. Yeah, I did that last year with Schitt's Creek. I kind of watched that all the way through, and then I kind of get to the end and like, oh, now what do you do?
Yes. Oh, that was such a great show.
Brilliant. This is another tough question. They're not very easy, but if you could have dinner with 3 guests, dead or alive, who are you inviting?
Oh, God. Dun, dun, dun. I think you've asked me this before. It's such a good question. And I'm trying desperately not to answer exactly the same as I did last time. I don't know. It could be anybody on any day. I mean, it is such a hard question to answer. I keep watching people on the TV, and I'm such a fan of Richard Osman's House of Games at the moment. I can't stop watching. And there's invariably somebody on there that I just say, oh, they could pop round for a cup of tea. Yeah. And all I mean by that is it's just somebody that I find fun, somebody I find open to conversation. And I love debate. I don't always like to be around people that have the same opinion as me, but I do appreciate when people are respectful enough to share opinions, discuss them, and just be respectful. And so there are so many people I see or I meet, and I just go, you can come around for a cup of tea. So I don't know, there's too many to narrow it down today.
That's all good. And the last question from me today would be, what's the best piece of advice you've ever been given?
In terms of work, the best advice I think is if you're doing something and it truly comes from you, it can't ever be wrong. Very simple words, but just certainly to me, it just means be authentic. If that's as a singer, don't try to sound like somebody else. Don't try to be somebody else's style. Just be you. I shared Martha Graham's brilliant quote on Twitter just yesterday. She must have said it however many years ago, but she speaks at length. But the basic essence is, never mind what other people might think or might say. We don't have to be worried about what we do being any good, being awful. We just have to just do. Do whatever you do, let it come from you. Stephen Sondheim wrote that, didn't he, in Sunday in the Park with George? Anything you do, let it come from you, then it will be new. Going back to you saying about many people regurgitate the same songs, yes, I agree, but I'm full of quotes today. The great Vincent Minnelli, the great MGM movie music director, great MGM movie musicals director, Vincent Minnelli, and Liza's dad, he said to her, everything's already been done. The only way to make anything new is to come at it from your own perspective. And so that's what I mean, I have so many albums of songs, and how many versions of Being Alive in the theatre community have we all got? But they're all different because it's everybody's, if they're doing it well, if they're following Martha Graham's great advice, if they're coming at it from their perspective, they're all different. Yeah. It's only when everybody stays in exactly the same arrangement, stays at the same tempo, stays at the same intention, and trying to be the same as, oh, that person did it like that, let me do that, then it doesn't quite work.
Yeah.
For me, anyway.
Oh, that brilliantly wraps it up today. So thank you very much for your time.
Oh, thank you for having me.
That's been glorious. And we'll see if people want to get your album. It's on your website, isn't it? Obviously, they can stream it from wherever now. So.
It is. It's streaming absolutely everywhere. How insane. Amazing. I finally made it to Spotify. How hip am I? Woo!
Even I've not got Spotify, so there you go.
Oh, my goodness.
No, thank you very much for your time. Hopefully it's not too long before I'm watching you working, rather than hopefully.